All right, bang, bang. Today is Tuesday. It's June 8th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Tinfoil Tuesday. Chief, new studio.
Yep.
How we doing?
I'm good. We're out of the old one. We had bad camera angles in there. I want to let the people know that I was fine going back in there with my alien brain, skull shape, whatever. But yeah, we're in the big studio.
Yeah, we don't have the camera set up in there yet, so
yeah,
it just didn't make sense to do it in there, so we're going to do it in here today. Nice. It's cool in here.
I love this studio.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's very sweet.
Feel lucky.
We're talking a little water today.
Yeah, water conflicts. So this is something that is, I think it's like I remember reading articles about this, like, oh, this will be the big thing. This will be the big thing. And then something that planted in my brain when we used to have the radio show, I feel like The Big Short used to come up all the time.
Yeah.
And you've seen it.
Yes, I've
Okay.
seen it, yes. I did not enjoy it as much as you guys did,
Yeah.
but I've seen it.
So Dr. Michael Berry, who's like the protagonist or whatever, the guy who was right about the housing crisis, when the end credits are rolling and they have like the ominous music about like, oh, like how this all collapsed, like Dr. Michael Berry has said that he only invests in one commodity, and it's water. And I was like, oh, like that's interesting. Like, because water in Chicago is free. Like you just don't even really think about being in short supply, or like it's like a tradable commodity or something people will like really fight over. And we're already starting to see it in 2021, really going back to like 2017. This is starting to bubble up in places all over the world. And it is becoming like the most important resource in the world. Or maybe always has been, but it is now. It's like becoming scarce, and it's becoming a problem.
Let me tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
You just set the tone perfect right there.
Good.
Because with him saying that, that's the only thing he invests in.
Yeah.
Makes me a lot more interested.
For sure. That's why I always kind of like, because I think I've pitched something like this to you before, and it's like, it's always on my brain.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this is like a real thing. It's something that everybody takes for granted in the modern world. It's like, oh, we got water. Like, I just turn the faucet on, it's a piece of cake. You got bottles of water everywhere, all over the place, and it's becoming a real problem. It's a big problem in California, and it's like a conflict problem in other places around the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into it, though, I do want to talk about Roman, Chief.
Mm-hmm.
It's another strong commodity that you should always have with you.
Yep.
Because we got the swipes. They're a way to last longer in bed.
Need that.
Scientifically proven, in fact. Because everyone has their old tricks.
Yeah.
Thinking about.
You don't want to think about various riverways across the world.
No.
Right.
You don't want to think about, the Pacific, the Atlantic, or how many gallons is in there. You just don't want to do that song and dance, so that's why you have these Roman swipes here for you to change the game.
Yeah. Ed, they're great. I hope you get to use one this weekend. I'll say that.
I appreciate that.
That's a nice gesture.
That's very, you too.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So Roman swipes, like I said, they can ship to you in discreet, unmarked packaging, and each swipe packet is small enough to hide in your wallet for whenever you need it. They're super easy to use. Just take the swipe out of the packet, swipe it on, let it dry, and you're good to go. That's it. To get your hands on them, all you got to do is go to GetRoman.com/walk, and you can get your first month of swipes for just $5 when you choose a monthly plan. That's GetRoman.com/walk. Go get the Roman swipes, people. You want to last longer in bed. Everyone does.
I don't think people appreciate how much benefit you're getting for that cost.
No, not at all.
Yeah. You're like, oh, $5. And it's like, yeah, it's $5 for like an infinitely better sex life.
Nope, not at all.
Yep.
All right, let's talk some water.
All right. So again, like kind of teeing up like how important it is. So, you always hear about like, oh, it's, the planet is 70% water, 70% water, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yes, only 3% of that is fresh water, and only 30% of that is in like drinkable condition. So most of the fresh water of that 3%, 2/3 of the fresh water in the world is just locked away in those different glaciers and ice caps. So like so there's a very small percentage of the water on Earth normally that is like drinkable and usable for farmland and shit like that we have access to. It's like almost nothing. It's like 1% of the world's total water. And then when you're having like climate change and these different factors and growing populations, appreciate that. We had a microphone in between us. We need eye contact for this podcast. And so you have all this problems with climate change. So you're having like more droughts. You're having like even rivers are shifting because you have like droughts and then followed by flooding. And it's like you have all these different problems. And they're saying that according to the UN, 66% of the world lives in quote unquote water scarce areas. And as the population continues to rise, I think most projections say we'll cap out at like 9.5 billion. And we're at like seven and change, almost 8, I think, right now. So we're like getting to like our theoretical peak before like birth rates and stuff start to go down. So hopefully it's not that big of an issue. But they're saying like as this climate change happens and as these dams are being built and usage goes up, that as many as 700 million people could be displaced, because it's like, hey, like we used to have water running through this part of our country that we used for agriculture, for industry, for power, all these different things, where it's just like, we don't have the water for that anymore. So we have to move. So we just saw like during the Arab Spring, there's all these like migration problems to Europe, right? And there's all these conflicts and like, oh, we got to send like 1 million Syrians to Italy, another 2 million to Germany. And it's like causing all these like geopolitical like strife, like both in these other countries where people are going to, and then also being able to support those people. And then the countries that they leave behind are like these kind of almost failed states in a lot of instances, because and one of the reasons why we're seeing like this displaced people is lack of water. And we're seeing that as a thing in Syria. Lack of access to water in Syria is a problem. Iraq is becoming a big problem with that. And we'll get into these different conflicts. But like the big one, the hot one right now, the hottest, I should say, is Egypt and Ethiopia, a couple countries that people probably don't spend much time thinking about.
So the rivers and shit are just drying up, you're saying?
It's a combination of them drying up, but then it's also people are like, hey, we're going to build these. Most of them is centered around the building of dams. And when you build this dam, you fill up like this basin behind it, and then you release the water kind of strategically as you want. And that's what you see, like we were talking about that Three Gorges Dam, right?
Yeah.
And they put that dam in, and it fills up all this water. They had to like move like 1 million people that were living upstream outside, away from their house, and everybody downstream, there's less water, but it's like consistently flowing unless it breaks, and then that's like a huge fucking problem. Like we talked about that other one. This one is similar situation. I do want to say, like, this guy. He's a vice president of the World Bank. He had this comment too recently, saying that wars of the last century were really fought about oil. Okay, a lot of it. So like us versus Japan in World War II, like there's Pearl Harbor. There was a lot of factors, but part of it was they needed more resources, so they were like attacking the Philippines because there used to be a lot of oil over there. That was, and then we had all the stuff in the Middle East. So it was really about access to oil. Which regimes are you supporting, or blah, blah, blah. But it's access to oil. This guy, Dr. Ishmael, I'm going to get his name wrong. We'll call him Dr. Ishmael. He's a vice president of the World Bank. So the wars of the next century will be fought over water. So it's like there are like experts from the UN, the World Bank, all these different geopolitical leaders and thought leaders being like, this is the big problem now. So we can solve everything else. Access to water for people is going to be like the next big like thing people fight wars over, and things that cause like unrest. Damn. So the thing with Ethiopia and Egypt, Ethiopia is like this emerging country. So if you look at like the fastest growing economies in the world, many of them are in East Africa, and there's actually going to be like there's a new country formed, or maybe more like the EU, where it's like they all join forces and use the same currency. That's happening in like between Rwanda and Kenya and Tanzania and all these places. They're going to be like, they're trying to make themselves by like forming an alliance, like a major power. Like we deal with China because we're big and we're having this growth and this infrastructure, and we're trading with the United States and we're doing this. Like we're the country in Africa. Like it's our continent. Like we only have this part of, so there's like, as these countries are getting more and more modern, and Ethiopia is kind of at the top of that list. Like they've had like tremendous growth. I remember when I was a kid, maybe you remember this too. They would say like, oh, for like 17 cents a day, like you can keep an Ethiopian kid alive. Like those you don't see those anymore.
No,
because poverty worldwide is down, famine worldwide is down. And like, as a lot of these that like through the 90s, as capitalism and you get away from some of these like communist states that were supported by the Soviet Union. So Soviet Union collapses, capitalism kind of takes over, more widespread, and you see the growth of these different countries. And Ethiopia has had tremendous growth. with that still, they have 75 million people in their country that don't have consistent electricity. Like they're off the grid. So they want to build this dam, and it's a huge fucking dam, huge dam. At the Nile has two branches, white and blue. So the part of the Nile that's in Ethiopia is the Blue Nile. They want to dam that up right on the border with a different country called South Sudan, which then leads into Egypt. And when they dam that up, if they go and they fill that dam over the reservoir behind the dam over a 10-year period, that's going to cause Egypt to have 14% less water, like usable water coming down the river. And that's over a 10-year span. And 18% of their farmland died. So Ed, you like fancy things. You like Egyptian cotton sheets, high thread counts, all that. Prices for that are going to go through the roof. They're not going to be able to grow cotton. They're not going to be able to grow rice to like feed their people. They're going to have a shit ton of people out of work, limited access to food and water. So Egypt's like, hey, like you can't build that fucking dam. And Ethiopia's like, it's inside our country. Like we need it. We're doing it. And if there's another thing where it's like if they filled it up in 3 years, then Egypt would lose 50% of their farmland.
Wow. So
there's like this they've been trying to have this argument back and forth, and they haven't been able to like reach a resolution because Ethiopia is like, to support our country and our people, we need that thing filled as fast as possible. So they're like 10 years, like, fuck you guys. That's your problem. You're downriver. You guys figure it out. So they've had this, like, it's becoming a growing and growing conflict to the point, like, someone asked Trump to comment on it. He's like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Egypt blew it up. I was like, blew up the dam? Like, yeah. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, they can't survive without the Nile. And it's like, if you think about the history of the world, like Moses was in the Nile, right? Like it's like Egypt has the Nile. It's like if you look at like a Google Maps, you'll see, and you see Egypt, it's like green, like right along where the Nile is, and spreads out green like by the Mediterranean. The rest of the country is it's desert. So if they lose like access to a ton of water from the Nile, their country is like dead. And there's a shit ton of people in Cairo. It's like I think there's 80 million people that live in Egypt. So we're talking like a lot of people displaced, a lot of people, without access to food and water. It's a big, big problem.
Can I give you my gut reaction?
Yes.
Well, before I give you my gut reaction, how about this?
Sure.
We got these lovely beef kits on the table. JP Graziano.
I'm making it this weekend.
Are you making it this weekend?
I've done it. This will be the second time I've done it.
Can I tell you something great about these right now, too? The shipping is back. We're back. You're going to be able to get these in about 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So don't worry about, I don't know when I'm going to get it. If you put your orders in now, you should be good by Father's Day.
That's what I was just going to say.
So make sure you get these
Do not hesitate.
Because
once people hear this, they sell out fast and you'll be back on the back order. So you gotta move quick. And they never disappoint.
No,
they're so good.
They don't. And I should say too, like even if you're not like I don't want to cook it, I don't want to do the whole thing.
It's not
you
cooking.
Could just, sure, but also you could just order the bottle of giardiniera.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
So like if you like, I like trying different jars, you could just go do that.
Yeah, and you can get it in the store too. Shout out to Jim, 84 years in that place.
If you want to buy shipping, go there. 84 years. JP Graziano, 901 West Randolph, and it'll be free shipping, obviously.
Yep.
So go get them. TasteRealChicago.com. Good stuff.
Love it.
My gut reaction is you shouldn't be able to do that.
What?
To build the dam.
Okay.
I feel like a river and like that's like nature.
Yeah, but everybody, like Egypt has dams.
Oh, they do?
They have their own dams, but it doesn't affect anybody. It doesn't affect Ethiopia because they're upstream of it. So Ethiopia, they're just like, hey, like we just want to have electricity. Like we have 75 million people without access to electricity. Like that's untenable in the year 2021.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be doing fossil fuels anymore because of, you get like a lot of shit for that. Like you don't want to have high carbon emissions. If you run on hydropower, that's a lot easier and it's more cost effective.
Yeah.
So like we want to have cheap, reliable energy that's clean for our country, and this is our best option. But yeah, I understand your point, but if I'm an Ethiopian, I only care about like my fucking self.
Now, does anybody upstream from them have a dam? Like, is this something where it's like, hey?
Well, it starts in Ethiopia, so there is nobody like behind them.
Gotcha.
So
I was gonna say if it's something where it could be like a dam treaty here, where it's like everybody unleashes it up from the top.
Right. Yeah, and that's what they're trying to like really negotiate is like who has the rights to that water and who can get it first, and that they can't reach a negotiated truce over this, and they've had like the project leader, the Ethiopian guy. There's a lot of theories that he was assassinated.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there are reports that this guy was shot in broad daylight, and that was the initial report. And there was like mass protest and marches and stuff in Ethiopia about like what the fuck, they killed our guy, and then the official report was that he committed suicide, but there was like no like warning signs allegedly or anything like that. But the official report was that this guy, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, rest in peace, but they said he was shot, and they say he was shot, but the police and everybody say it was a suicide. So that who knows? Like no one knows. The official report is that it was ruled a suicide, but that's a bad fucking thing.
Yeah.
And then Ethiopia also accused. Like they arrested people coming over the border from this other country. Now this other country called Eritrea that borders Ethiopia. They fucking hate Ethiopia. So they arrested people Egyptians and Sudanese people trying to come in to Ethiopia, and Ethiopia accused them of like being terrorists that were going to come in and like try to blow up the dam. So that was back in like 2018, and then in 2019, Ethiopia is just like, hey, like, don't fuck with us. Like, this is like enough of this. Like, and the prime minister said, he just talks openly about having a war with Egypt. He's like, there's no force that could stop us. We could get millions ready for war in an instant if we needed to. And it's just like, oh shit. And this is a big problem. This is a huge problem because there are 280, there's this, the Nile River Valley, which runs through like 11 different countries. There's 280 million people that live there. So if this becomes like a conflict zone, like you're going to have refugee crisis. You're going to have a lot of different problems running around in this part of the world. And we haven't had like a real war between two countries that are, I would say, like in equal standing in a long time. Like we fought Afghanistan, the Taliban, Iraq, and but it's like that's almost like a hammer and a nail kind of situation. Like it's not like us versus Germany or Japan in World War II, or even like when we fought Vietnam. Like it's not the same. It would be a bloodier war in theory because both countries are like kind of similar in terms of population, where they are in the world, technology, industry, all of that. So it's like a scary situation brewing there between Ethiopia and Egypt.
Isn't this quite literally like what the UN is for?
You would think, but it seems like no. I'm always like, why isn't this talked about more? And if you go on YouTube, it's like, and you punch this in, there's a bunch of different, like Al Jazeera talks about it, the BBC talks about it, France 24, like, so other countries are like, who are closer, I guess, maybe to that area. They're like, oh, like this is
not good.
Yeah, you can find like an update almost like every, like at least once a month on what's going on there. And the most recent update just happened on June 1st. Egypt and Sudan are doing like joint military exercises right near the border with Ethiopia, because it's like we're gearing up. We're getting ready to go. It's a bad situation.
No,
and that's the hottest one. But China and India have one, because China, I saw an article, and again, it's like, I hate quoting stats because it sounds like too preposterous of a number, but they're saying the last 20 years or 25 years maybe, China across their entire country has built 87,000 different dams. Like I don't know how the fuck that's possible, but supposedly they've done that. And they're building one. Yeah. Like, and again, like I'm trying to think of now, like what classifies as a dam. So you ever heard of the Fox River?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Fox River runs through St. Charles. It probably runs through St. Charles, Geneva, Elgin, all those, like the Fox River Valley. And I feel like every town has like a little dam. Like, downtown St. Charles, you go over the bridge, there's like a little dam. I can't imagine, like, I don't know what that dam's for. It doesn't seem like it's connected to hydropower or anything like that. But it's like, so is that a dam? Would that classify as one of these 87,000? I don't know. But supposedly the number is 87,000. The big problem is that China is building one. There's all these like disputed borders up there because no one really lives up in that area because it's the Himalayas between like Nepal and China and India and Bhutan, but it's up in like that Tibet area where all like Mount Everest and all the biggest mountains in the world are. Well, there's a shit ton of rivers and stuff that flow out of there. Obviously, if you're going to have the meltage coming down the mountains, that's where basically all rivers start. And China is trying to build a dam that would quote unquote dwarf the Three Gorges Dam because you're getting all the glacial runoff, and it's on this river. The Indian name for the river is Brahmaputra. And it's supposed to be bigger, like I said, bigger than that Three Gorges Dam. So China is building all these dams, and there's another one on something called the Mekong River, which flows down like Vietnam and Laos, and this river flows like down to like Bangladesh, the big one, and then all of India. And India is like, that's where we do a lot of our agriculture. It's where we grow the spices, where we do the rice. It's where we do all of our shit is up in that. That's like our big agriculture center, which is fed by this river. And if you guys just take it, then we are fucked. And there are people who theorize that China is quote unquote, it's not my quote, trying to weaponize water, where it's like, we can just, hey, you guys need electricity, you need water, you better fucking act right because we'll just slow the dam up so you guys get a trickle. And that is like it's like a big problem. It's a big problem. And that's one of the problems as to why Iraq is still, it's part of the reason why Iraq is having so much trouble. Have you ever heard of the Tigris and Euphrates River?
No.
Okay. So they say that is like
I've heard of Tigris.
Yeah. It's like they say it's the cradle of civilization. Yeah. So these two rivers that run down Iraq, and I get them mixed up. I think it's the Euphrates River. Turkey and Syria have put so many dams upstream that river flows at 25% of what it did. So you get like almost nothing. So again, like that doesn't seep into the groundland. You have less for irrigation. That river valley, that Tigris and Euphrates River Valley, that's where people learned how to like be human beings. Theoretically, that's how we learned how to farm shit. Those were the first like Babylon and all these places because they were like right there because they had enough water flow, and that's why Iraq has always been like such a strategic, like important country in the history of the world, and they're drying up that river. And then the Euphrates flows down from Afghanistan into Iran and then into Iraq. And Iran is blocking that off. And then Iran looks over to Afghanistan. And I guess the Taliban in the Afghanistan government, they're blocking the river up there. So they're like, hey, fuck you guys. Like, we need that water. Like, what are you guys building that river for? Or building that dam on that river for? Like, we need that. So everybody is just trying to like get their piece and get control. And it's like a race to see who can like get the most electricity and then control the water. And this is the thing that everybody is predicting will be like the source of like the major conflicts the rest of this century.
And would this still be as much of a conflict if we were still using fossil fuels and stuff like that? So in a sense like that, getting cleaner and
yeah, it's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. It could, I mean,
it's kind of crazy that that would be a casualty of, bettering.
Yeah. I honestly don't know. It doesn't sound ridiculous to me, but again, there are a lot of the reasons why people are saying that there's less fresh water available or less consistent fresh water because you have like crazy droughts and then flooding and then storms and then not. And is that all the climate change, which most people attribute to just global warming. So and then they're like, what causes global warming? Carbon emissions and the oil. So it's like, I don't know like which finger to point where, but it doesn't seem like there's an obvious solution anywhere. And everything's just getting like ratcheted up. Like it's crazy to me that countries are going to fight over a river. Like it seems like something you would do like 4,000 years ago.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, I was like, I don't think it should be that way because it should just be kind of.
Yeah, everybody uses it.
That's how nature flows down. It's not their fault that they're there.
Right.
That's where they were given.
Yeah. But then they would just be like, it's not our fault that we're there. You know what? We're just going to invade your country and take it. Fuck you. Yeah. So like now we do have it. Now it is our fault that we're there.
Like imagine if this was the Mississippi. It's like, are we going to, Minnesota up there, they're going to fucking just control everything. It's like, hey.
And that has become like a thing that's been a problem between states too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Where it's like, hey, like, and sometimes it's like it's a pollution thing. So I know that, there's all the agriculture, right? The Iowa, Illinois, they're all growing corn and soy and shit all on the Mississippi. Well, there's so much of the runoff from like the different fertilizers that finds its way into the Mississippi River that it's killed like a ton of marine life and fisheries right in the Gulf of Mexico, where it empties out over by like New Orleans. So it's like Louisiana's like, what the fuck? Like you guys are using chemicals that are impacting like our industry. So like that is like a thing that states battle over. There's big time battles between states over the Colorado River too. So it's like, California needs it, right? So they get their power basically from the Hoover Dam, and they get a lot of their water from over there too. So they have to like rely on other states. So when California has like rolling blackouts, a lot of times it's because they, somebody else in a different state might have shut them off. So, okay. And then California there's a great, I think it was on Netflix documentary about their like big time water crisis in California, that two of their big industries are agriculture industries rather, are almonds and like the vineyards and the grapevines and stuff. And it takes like gallons and gallons and gallons of water to make one almond.
Really?
Yeah. So you have the trees, right? To keep the trees alive, it takes like swimming pools worth of water to like do one tree. And then to get like one almond, it takes like 50 gallons to get one little almond. It's like, I'm going to get those numbers wrong, but directionally correct, because those are specifically a major suck on freshwater supply.
That's nuts.
It is. Nice pun.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that an almond pun?
No, it was not.
Okay.
But now it is.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. Like water is, Dr. Michael Burry.
Yeah.
I don't know how to buy water. I feel like everyone's on Bitcoin. Everyone's on crypto. Tom is on crypto. How do I buy a water coin? I want to buy a water coin.
Well, what you got to do, but people don't know this. I'm not going to get too far in depth in case you're still interested. But that was like your big thing you wanted to do in life. You had there was like a water company you wanted to buy or something? Yeah,
that's out in Oregon. Yeah, it's still available for sale. Somebody wants to give me $3 million. I would love to buy that water company. And that company, fuck it. They have this system where they collect rainwater, and they have these pipes, and it like purifies their own rainwater and then pumps it directly into the bottling system. It's awesome. It's a great business, but they just don't know how to brand it properly. So I've always wanted to buy that water company, rebrand it. I just don't have the money. So if someone wants to give me $3 million, if there's any angel investor out there, there's a water company in Oregon for sale. Last time I checked, for probably about $3 million.
Hit Chief up.
Hit me up.
Get in the water game.
Yep. Water's where it's at.
Wow.
Out by Bend, Oregon.
China's got fucking India by the balls, huh?
They got everybody by the balls. So they have, because they own that Tibetan plateau, there's like 11 major rivers in Asia that supply like the whole continent really with, or Southeast Asia. So not counting the Middle East, but the rest of it. All of it comes from these 11 major rivers. 10 of them have their start in China. So China could choke off basically the entire continent and that seems like that's what they're trying to do with all these infrastructure projects, these dams that slow the rotation of the earth. Like, oh, we have one that's slowing the rotation of the earth. Let's build a bigger one. Fuck you, India. And like that's what they're trying to do. So they're trying to like control all the water for that entire continent, and they have access to the start, like they call them I think they're called the headwaters of 10 of the 11 major rivers.
Crazy.
So it is crazy.
Well, all right, Chief. Thank you. That
Water
was
wars.
Very, very fascinating stuff, and it's going to be like last week. It's the same thing with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
It's just something to keep your eye on.
Yeah, it's
now when like something happens, you'll be a little informed.
Yeah, I think that's the idea.
Yeah.
So kind of be like, oh, and this is just stuff like, if you're having it, like, I feel like this podcast has turned into like, oh, like I can retell like part of that story at a party. Like that's
what it's done for me, for
Yeah,
sure. Like I said,
yeah.
I couldn't stop telling people about the Three Gorges Dam.
I mean, it's fucking enormous.
It's
and
crazy.
this one's going to be bigger. This one's going to be bigger than that one.
Yeah.
India and China have had like open battles along the border. They're like, ooh, like 2 people died. And then cooler heads prevail. But not between like people, between soldiers. So they both have like their militaries along the border. It's crazy. Crazy times and no one's talking about it.
Very crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Chief. That's it for today, everybody. Thank you for listening. We will be back tomorrow. We'll see you then.